Hi, I'm Abhinav.
I'm Madhu.
Welcome to the Inspiring Idea Podcast. We interview people from across the world and share their life stories and success formulas with our audience. We hope this will inspire you to achieve your dreams. So, let's get the show started.
Our guest today is someone who spent 4 years living and conducting business in Beijing, China. After successfully founding and growing a profitable education company, he has since moved back to San Francisco to invest his experience, connections, and resources back into the startup ecosystem. He is the head of incubation at Tech Code Accelerator. He is also the founder of Silicon Valley Successes, a television show, and the Silicon Valley podcast, where he has interviewed some of the biggest names in tech. He's so passionate about building a bridge that connects the Silicon Valley and the rest of the world. Please welcome Shawn Flynn. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you going?
I'm doing great. Actually, I want to thank you guys for having me as a guest. I'm a fan of your show, even though I know it's a very new podcast. But everything I've heard so far, I'm really excited. So thank you guys for having me.
Welcome, Sean. Sean, in the next 30 minutes, we want to explore your life journey and deep dive into some key moments which contributed to who you are today. I'll start with this, Sean. You really hit the nail by spending time in two of the greatest places that shapes the future of the world, Silicon Valley and China. Where did your entrepreneurship journey start in life?
Well, a lot of it I want to say is actually luck, to be honest. And luck, most people probably wouldn't. I mean, if you look at the whole situation, my parents bought a house in Danville, which when they bought it, a train actually went through the town. They bought a house there because it was the cheapest area to buy a house, and they got a
Hmm.
huge discount because there's only four other houses in the development, and they were living in Oakland at that time. But I mean, who would have known, 20 years later that this little area becomes a town where a lot of the people from Silicon Valley live, and then they commute into San Jose and that for work. So my neighbors, I mean, pets.com and some of these huge companies that have, failed, uh, they all were in an area I used to ride my bike around and rollerblade around and skateboard and all that other stuff. And I
Hmm.
actually remembered in high school, a lot of my friends, I graduated high school in 2000. So right, the peak of the dot-com bubble, a lot of my friends and the grade above me, especially the grade above me, were contemplating, do I go to college or do I just work in Silicon Valley at my dad's tech company? And actually, I knew a few people that decided to work at their parents' tech company, and then a year later the company's bust, they're actually selling their house.
Okay, yeah.
Horrible things happen, but you're growing up in this environment where everyone is thinking, start a company, do
Mm.
something, push
Yeah.
yourself. You have
Hmm.
that guy that was a history major that's now a multi millionaire in tech, and you're like, how do those two even work? But that was what the ecosystem was like then, and it is today. It's when you grow up in this environment, it pushes you in that direction. So that's kind of how luck, would have it there. And then China, that was another fate thing, I guess, as well. After college, I wanted to travel the world. I had a friend in the Peace Corps in Costa Rica. I
Hmm.
moved to Costa Rica for almost 2 years, and this was 2005 to 2007. When I was there, they have a lot of call centers there that
Hmm.
same time zone as the US, and they speak English and Spanish. There's a huge community that works in the US, so their English level is very high in Costa Rica for a big portion of the population. But when I was there, they were teaching some of the people Chinese, and the idea was to have call centers there that could speak English, Spanish, and Chinese. So that's half the world's population right there, or more than
Hmm.
half. And when I was living there and doing some research, I thought, oh my gosh, China is just developing. I mean, you look at the numbers in 2005,
Yeah.
2006, and I kept thinking, okay, I don't want to go back to the US and have a real job. All my friends that graduate college, we were mechanical engineers. I did mechanical engineer undergrad. Some of them liked their jobs, other of them hated life, and I was having the time of my life in Costa Rica. I was having way too much fun to give any of that up. And I decided, okay, where would the next challenge be? Where would the next big opportunity be? And through my research, I found, okay, let's see if I can do everything I did in Costa Rica. In
Hmm.
Costa Rica, I was able to support myself. I did, some little side projects here and there, but I was able to live. Let's see if I can take all this knowledge and now go to China, learn the language, start a company, do all that stuff there. And I felt to myself, if I could do that in China, I could pretty much conquer any place in the world. And
Absolutely.
so in 2008, right before the Olympics, I went to China, and I thought I was going to be able to do everything in a year or two, but it took almost 5 years.
Absolutely.
It's a challenge. So
Yeah, it's a new country, buddy. I mean, I can imagine. It's a new country. You're going there, starting from scratch. Obviously, you knew a few people, but still, it's hard work.
Yeah.
I didn't know anyone in China. Are you kidding? I got off the plane going, what do I do now? I signed up for a language university, you know, had the little piece of paper and the characters I printed off the internet, handed it to the taxi driver, just pointed, and that was my that was my intro to China.
This is one of the
So
bravest stories I've listened so far, buddy.
absolutely. And I think like when you go there, there's like it's a completely different in terms of culturally as well. So what are the different challenges that you face there, like especially for the first 2 years that you were there?
Oh, the list of challenges will just go on and on every day. Even after being there almost 5 years, I was learning something every day. And
Oh,
actually, the company I'm at now, one of the biggest things I was doing before the trade war was helping companies here in Silicon Valley set up operations and offices there in China. And while I'm prepping these companies, I'm telling them, and everything just keeps changing. So some of the things, and this would be a perfect example of just a little thing that could make a big deal.
Mm,
yeah.
In the US, when you write numbers, you write a comma after the third zero. So
that's
like
right.
Hmm.
1,000. Is that the same I'm guessing same in India. In China, it's after the fourth zero.
Okay.
So I would look at these numbers. I'd be like, wait, is that 10,000 or 1,000? Like, what is going on here? And you're negotiating contracts, and you're like, okay, are they negotiating it like the West or the East? What's going on here? Because that's a factor of 10. And it was always so confusing, and just the culture of paying people salaries and counting the money in front versus not. Um, the list can go on and on. Contracts being worthless pretty much there. I remember when me and my business partner, I was like, we got to get this contract. And she was like, why? I was like, well, so everyone knows what's going on, so everyone will follow it. And she just looked at me. She's like, Shawn, it's not enforceable at all. You're just wasting
Oh,
everyone's time. And I insisted on it. And actually, that contract itself, the, the our client completely broke it, owed us a ton of money. And of course, it was not enforceable at all. And I was like, so lessons like that, I mean,
Mm,
learning how to do business like the local environment, how the local culture does it with the
mm.
local rules, and being acceptable to that. Because I mean, unless you're adaptable and open-minded and you go into it, and if you still hold what you have back from your home country in that new environment, you're going to fail. You
Absolutely.
have
yeah.
to localize 100%. And with that, China and US are different worlds, completely different worlds.
I agree, man.
So
I agree. So coming
yeah.
back to the another transition that you made, you move from country to country. Why did you have to come back to Silicon Valley? Why did you have to go through the pain of another country transition? And what were the, what did you take from China that you think that Silicon Valley is something that you can do a magic on?
Well, the pain of coming back to the US, that was actually very difficult because to me, I thought I was pretty successful in China. I had a business, I was making money. I was actually, more towards the top of income earners in that in the area if you looked at my salary. But
Hmm.
then you come back to Silicon Valley and the currency converts 7 to 1. You move to San Francisco, one of the most expensive spots in the world. And next thing you know, you're like, I'm broke. Right? Like it's so funny coming back to Silicon Valley from this one area to the other. But I came back here. I was in a good situation, um, and I mean, I just wanted to see how I could take all that knowledge and resources I had there and utilize it here in my home country. The one thing that I really wanted was, if you're doing something in another country based on their laws and regulations, it might not be yours.
Hmm.
Mm.
And that was kind of my situation, where at any time it could just be taken like that. So I was frustrated at that point. I thought, okay, I want to go back to the US because whatever I build will be mine. I'm confident it will be mine. I'll get to hold on to it. So when I came back here, I still had that drive, but at the same time I was kind of exhausted, but I also had some family things I had to take care of as well.
Mm.
And it was also really a difficult, I guess the most difficult part of the transition back was, since so few people here had experienced what I had, they
Mm.
didn't really fully appreciate or comprehend the resources I was bringing.
That's true.
They just hear, oh, you lived overseas for like 7, 8 years, Costa Rica, China, Europe, China, you know, what's your experience? I'm like,
Mm.
whoa, I started a couple companies. I did this,
Mm.
I did that.
Mm.
So it was difficult, but at the same time, by learning to adapt through all those years of moving into new cultures, I was able to acclimate myself pretty quickly here.
Mm. I
And
think
then,
it boils down to the self-confidence that you had after such rejections initially when you came back to Silicon Valley. You never lost that, isn't it? That's what you're saying.
I would say I'm used to getting no's, used to getting shut down and keep going. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have some grit when you're doing this stuff in other countries, and then when you're back in your home, more comfortable environment. If you keep that grit with you, you can do a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, I think me and Madhu can relate to it because I think we migrated to Australia about 7, 8 years back without jobs. And as you said, the first thing is that when once you come in here, you start converting everything before you're buying stuff. And you're wondering, okay, how much is going to cost me here? Yeah, that's so true.
And your current role, um, Sean, is the role of a head of incubation, right? So listening to your intuition, learning from your experience working in Costa Rica, China, and then coming back to Silicon Valley, there are certain hard routes that you have taken in the entrepreneurship journey. So if I want to ask you to unpack some of these mindsets and the key decisions that you have made in your transformational journey, what would those one or two decisions that you would recall as the best ones that audience can take?
Oh, when you're young, try as many things as possible. That was, I mean, I wish I actually would try more. Now I'm married. I'm kind of settling down a little bit. I can't responsibly take the same risk as I could before.
Hmm.
Then I could just say, I'm done with this country. On to the next one. I
Yeah.
mean, there you can literally risk everything, and the worst thing that happens is maybe you have to move back home with your parents for a little bit, or sleep on a friend's couch for some time. So try, just don't have regrets when you don't have the responsibilities. That's when you can really strive, because some of those will pay off and you'll get so much further along than you would have if you went the more traditional route.
Mm.
Awesome. Let's talk about the last 2 decades, which has profoundly changed the way human beings live and operate. We've seen so many successful companies starting from Silicon Valley and making it big. We got so many examples: Netflix, Zoom, Uber, etc. Let's talk about what went right for them.
I mean, a lot of it was, I can't say a lot of it, but yes, the right place. They're in an environment where they had access to capital, they had access to mentors, advisors that could help them scale, that have had exits before. They were in an area where, yes, there were regulations, but it's very common to fight
Hmm.
regulations, and people will support you, and with lawyers' help, you can get through a lot of things. They we're in an area where innovation is championed.
Hmm.
I mean, I can even say a story. There's an investment banker I know that sat across the table from Travis as he was pitching the idea for Uber, and told the guy, "This is the dumbest idea I've ever heard."
There you go.
no one is going to
Uh,
get in a stranger's car that they
mm,
Yeah.
don't know.
mm.
You're This is crazy. But of course, Travis goes to the next investment banker, the next investor gets a check. And that's kind of the beauty here. One investment banker is having dinner with me, the other is, in a mansion on top of the hill.
That's true. That's
But
true.
it's just having those opportunities to go to the next person, having that grit to keep going, having the founders that have the resources to keep moving, and have that mindset where, okay, I'm always coachable. I will adapt to whatever is brought in front of me and I will learn from it. I will seek out those who have more knowledge, take that knowledge and implement it into what I'm doing. And you'll just hear stories of these founders that are literal sponges. They will
Hmm.
just take information from this advisor, this senior lawyer, this accountant who's worked with another company that went IPO and took the best knowledge from them, and they're good with people too. That's one thing I would definitely say. So uh, I'm gonna give a shameless plug. My podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast. I've gotten to interview some of the biggest names: Melanie Perkins, founder of Canva; Jim McKelvey, co-founder of Square. The moment you talk to these people, you feel like you know them and you want
Mm.
to help them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing the people skill that some of these founders have, literally, because I've met people in the past where I'll meet them for a second and I go, I hope that guy fails. And then I'll go, wait, Shawn, don't think evil thoughts in other people, everyone should succeed. But then you meet these guys and you're like, you're a great person. I want to help you. Who do I know that can help you? I want to go out of my way to help you, even if I get nothing in return. And that's a skill, quality, I would say, that these founders of a lot of these companies also have.
Mm.
That those champions on the sidelines saying, I want you to get to the next level. Maybe I can write a check. Maybe I can't, but maybe I know someone that can help you. Let's just talk because we have some rapport going. So there's a lot of qualities, and I think that's also why we hear so few of these companies growing these champions, because really people that have these skills to especially grow and develop over time. Because each company, I mean, when you have 10 people, when you have 30, when you have 50, when you have 100,
Hmm.
the company is a different company at each stage. It really is. The way you manage them, from I'm involved in every task to I'm delegating to every task to I don't know what 90% of the things actually are that's going on. Each of those is a different mindset among the leader, the champion of the company, and few people can adapt in such a short amount of time to that, because these companies are scaling quite rapidly.
Hmm.
I mean, you're doubling headcount possibly, every other month or every couple months, and as you have to adapt with that. So I mean, I could keep going on and on for some of the things I've noticed, but I mean, a lot of it are those things: being good with people, being good with yourself, knowing what your strong suits are. I mean, the
Hmm.
worst thing is having that CTO think he's a CEO, or that CEO, thinks he's a CTO. It doesn't match.
It
I mean,
doesn't match.
what you're strong at, that's what you got to be the champion of,
I
and
agree.
you got to lead the company in that. And maybe, I mean, there's one company that I saw their seed round. I followed them a little bit. The marketer, yes, he started off as one of the co-founders, but after they got to 30 something employees, he stepped down. He purposely said, hey, I don't like managing people. I like working on certain tasks. That's what my strong suit is. I'm very good at my projects, but I can't manage people. And he knew that, so that helped the company. If he had blocked it, if he had
Yeah.
fought, who knows, maybe that tears the company apart. No idea, but
I think it's
we could
about
talk about this for
self
days.
realization. Yeah, yeah. I
Huh.
mean, we loved what you're talking about. So it's about the self realization of what you are good at and what you can actually implement and bring it to the table. So we call it as ikigai. It's a Japanese word for that, right? So what you're good at and what you can be paid for is something that you can get into it. Absolutely awesome to listen to some of those key tells and some of the characteristics to be successful. Thank you for that, Shawn. I just wanted to move on to the next one about the current situation that we are all living in. Everyone talks about COVID-19. And as a founder, as an investor, someone who's helping many investors as well, do you see any apprehensions in investments for startups right now? Broadly speaking, you talk about customer delivery, you talk about online learning. So these are some of the immediate areas that comes to my mind where innovation is at its peak. On the other side, there are investments that are still going on with AI and robotics and some of the disruptive technologies which you are passionate about. So if I'm a founder, if I'm an investor, if I'm thinking about investing, where would I put my eggs?
Well, I'm not giving any investment recommendations on anything, but I could talk to you about kind of what I'm seeing here right
Hmm.
now. And yes, people are very unsure of what's going to happen in the future, especially angel investors and that have a certain amount of their portfolio allocated to investment in certain stage companies. And they don't know if that part is going to expand, contract. They don't really know what's going on. So a lot of them are hesitant. Also, a lot of the ways that they were meeting companies before, pitch events, their angel group meetings, yes, some of them have gone virtual now, but some of them have been on pause for quite a bit. So that interaction there, it's a little bit less. Luckily, though, with online platforms such as what we're using, Zoom, and that, people are now starting to get even more meetings than before. They're more open to connect. They can do more in a single day. I
Hmm.
mean, VC funds, the ones I've talked to, kind of the same situation. They're hesitant, but at the same time, they have a mandate to deploy capital in a certain amount of time. I mean, their thesis says, okay, we have to invest in a certain number of companies over a certain span, and then those companies grow, then we start harvesting the money. So they know themselves, okay, at first, maybe the first 2-3 months, we could kind of hold back and see what's going on. But at the same time, now we really have to start investing and actually have to catch up even a little bit, because we were planning on investing in 1 or 2 companies a month and we haven't done anything for 3 months. So now we have to catch up. And then we also have the groups out there going, okay, I'm going to raise a venture fund or that, and really analyzing where they think the future is going to be. A
Mm,
lot of the events and people I've talked to are now starting to shift more towards telemedicine,
Hmm.
med tech devices. Uh, I mean, and then also like fintech and that, because they so much money being transferred, payments, all these banks are on these legacy systems that are 30, 40 years old. Some people are saying, they even say that, some of these things are written on code they don't even have coders for anymore. It's
that's right.
That's
is
right. Yeah.
so, and that actually is a lot of opportunity, because a lot of these companies that had spent, or were thinking of adopting this technology over the next 3 or 5 years are now forced to adopt it over the next 3 or 5 months. So there's a lot of opportunity amongst all this chaos. Um, and it definitely, you mentioned it before, there's definitely different sectors that are benefiting from it.
That's good.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about the future. Where is Silicon Valley headed, say, in a decade or two? Where would be the hotspots? And who do you think would be the next Uber, Square, Amazon?
Oh, well, if you're talking a decade from now, I mean, the next Uber Square won't be built for another 5 years. It won't be someone's mind or in someone's mind. I think there's going to be a huge disruption in fintech,
Hmm.
with banking. I'm not sure, but I think I could see governments going to digital currency. If that happens globally, so many things are going to change politically. Uh, I mean, the list can go on and on. Um, Blockchain technology for logistics. I mean, we're seeing right now a lot of the countries nationalize or try to bring manufacturing back locally. Well, with
Yes.
that, that's disrupting the supply chain. So then we have to go, okay, we got blockchain technology, we got all these IoT devices monitoring, we have everything going to blockchain, the cloud and cloud storage. How is this all going to change? And I mean, also right now, even with harvesting crops and planting, well, ag
Hmm.
tech, because we're not going to see the same people in the fields as they were before, and the technology, the manufacturing equipment has to be adjusted and changed. So at this stage, I mean, everything's up for grabs for, things. I mean, God, I had a conversation the other day with this person who This company is developing this machine that can literally harvest 100 acres of crops in less than a day. And the crops that they're
Hmm.
focused on is one that before no one could, harvest by machine. And you're just listening to this going, you may be crazy, but if you're not, and this works, that's a game changer.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
So
So we're going to see a lot of that in the coming years for sure, with AI completely changing the way that we operate as humans. So I know from your perspective, you run a podcast and you love technology. Your main mission is to provide coaching, content reference, handy tools, and creating a cohesive community for anyone who wants to jump onto the startup journey. So do you want to very quickly talk us about what you do, and how do you think that people can reach out to you to get benefited?
yes, so thank you for asking. So I have a podcast, the Silicon Valley Podcast. I've interviewed some of the biggest names. I mentioned Jim McKelvey. I've mentioned Melly Perkins, Patrick Lee, founder of Rotten Tomato. I've interviewed Connor Riley, a managing partner at an investment bank here, Bill Reckner, who is managing partner at Garage Ventures, Steve Hoffman. The list goes on and on with these experts here, which are no names in the Valley that have helped this community out so much. And one of the things that really frustrated me is I work with companies all over the world, and they would ask me similar questions. How do I create a pitch deck for Silicon Valley, raise capital? How do I register a company? How much equity should I give up each round? Things like that. And I was so frustrated because I could have these conversations every day, but these companies from Korea, Germany, China that I was talking to, they needed an introduction. They needed someone to facilitate it. So I thought, okay, let's do a TV show. That TV show caught on. It was in 28 cities, but it was all
Hmm.
US
Wow.
still. And I went, okay, I got to do something global. So last September, I started a podcast. April 30th of this last year, I rebranded it, relaunched it as the Silicon Valley Podcast. And right now, my goal is to get the information from all these experts here in Silicon Valley and pass it along to people in the world that could benefit. I'd like to get it in every startup ecosystem, every startup little hub, incubator, accelerator that in the world. I'd love that person in India to go, oh my God, I just listened to this interview with Brett Chernow, who helped raise over 7 billion in exits, 750 million in capital, talk about financial modeling. And I can use his advice, which would normally cost, 1,000 an hour for his time on my startup. And I listen to this guy's podcast. Like that's my dream. That's what I'm hoping to accomplish with all
Beautiful,
this,
man.
is to help people that can't access this knowledge access it.
That's a
Mm, I can
fantastic dream. Yeah.
I can definitely see there's a lot of gap in terms of reaching out. That's You're doing a wonderful job, buddy. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's a real pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Not,
Shawn.
oh, thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun. And yeah, if there's anything I can do for you and your listeners, please let me know.
Sure.